team
guess
on there? Or
I think that was time you should
We
be
live.
for shirt.
France is the proper team.
We are live, gentlemen.
So,
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
good evening.
We're live. Just waiting again for some persons to show up and for us all to just share the link. Guys, go ahead and share the link
Sure you
to in the group.
She's getting ready for New Jersey, so she can't come right now.
Right, so we are live with Ras Simba. We just getting ready for some persons to come on live onto the show. Mute, guys, mute. Please, we ask that you share the link in pages. Share the link on the page as well, so that we can get persons watching the live stream, so that we can have a really robust conversation. I'm sure just with much persons as possible as we discuss medical legalization of marijuana with Ras Simba. So go ahead and feel free to share the link with as much persons so that we can have a really good conversation here.
Kimar, you can share the group.
No, my phone is being used. You guys just copy the link.
Let me see what pop up your picture too.
Just will you paste it in the link? Just wait for it to pop up.
Oh.
This is the link. Copy this. Wait and then.
I waited for I say that.
Okay, I don't know how your phone is working. So we're just waiting for some others to.
It is something.
I'm sharing, so I don't know. I'm sharing in groups right now. Alright, so just give us a minute while we share, so that we can have some people, and then we will go from their groups. Hi Ricky, welcome. Feel free to share, as I said, as much people. We're discussing legalization of marijuana with Ras Simba, who is representing the Rastafarian community and also the African Heritage Foundation. And as I said, we're just sharing to some of our pages so people could feel to join in this conversation. Feel free as well to share it with your groups, with your people. The most persons that we can go on your Facebook and just share it. The most persons we can, the more people on this conversation, the more interesting the conversation becomes, as one would imagine. Okay. And just we're gonna get ready to start soon. So just, as I said, just bear with us while we invite some people to come on. We are doing live stream, so all this is a part of what we have to do to get the show going and to get people in on the conversation. And as I said, we will be discussing a legalization of marijuana with Ras Simba. We have myself, Kimar Safri. Next to me is Kimar Stewart, and we also have Jermaine Beckford. I was so close.
You're calling me all names.
I was so close. So that's nothing wrong there. So while we are sharing and while we have some people on, good evening everyone. Please take the time out to share the link with your friends. Share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram, share it wherever you can. We're discussing legalization of marijuana today with Ras Simba, I would have mentioned earlier, who's representing the Rastafarian community, but is also representing the African Heritage Foundation. Now, your questions are very important to us. We want to hear your thoughts as it relates to legalization of marijuana. We will be talking with Ras Simba. We have seen the national committees coming together to talk about the legalization of marijuana as it relates to the medical marijuana. And we know that the Rastafarian community plays an integral role as it relates to this marijuana being passed more on the medical side, but we've heard them talk about having the marijuana also pass for sacramental purposes, or whether we would like to call it religious purposes. And they have a voice and they want their voice to be heard as it relates to this, and they want to have their say as it relates to the bill, as it relates to the legislation, or any policy that is coming. They want to be able to give an input so that they too can have benefit in the legalization of the marijuana. And as I said, they're more looking at the recreational side of it, but we want to hear what their thoughts are as it relates to the medical side, the recreational side, sacramental side, religious side. So it was really important to have Ras Simba here to discuss medical marijuana. We're really proud to have him here today to discuss. He's president of the African Heritage Foundation. Now, as I said, we want you to share the link. We want you to like the page. If there's any technical difficulties, please let us know so that we can address any technical difficulties that we may have. So, Ras Simba, I just want to say thank you on behalf of my team and everyone for just coming out to speak with us as it relates to the legalization of marijuana. Give us an opening, what is the Heritage Foundation? Give us some opening, and who is Ras Simba, and we'll go from there.
I give thanks to everyone for having me here. I actually saw the show for the first time 2 weeks ago when there was, I think it was 2 weeks ago when there was another discussion on cannabis. Someone
Yes.
was looking at it and I heard my name called. I said, who's that calling my name? And I said, we never see this, So, and here I am now.
Yes. We're glad you were watching, huh?
Yeah. And since then I have tuned into some of the shows to see, and I think it's a good idea. The foundation itself had a similar idea, so it is good to see that these sort of forums are presenting themselves to people where people can have a more, as the Rasta would say, a more grounded. We would call it like a more grounded.
Hence the name DeBrief.
Yeah, right. The debriefing.
Debriefing.
Right. So I am Simba. My legal name Paul Rock. I am the president of the African Heritage Foundation. I am the founder of that. That is a charitable organization.
Okay.
That comes off of the consciousness of the Marcus Garvey organization, the UNIA, and what that stood for, as a Pan-African organization representing people in a colonial, now a neo-colonial space. So it is intended to bring an African-centered perspective to some of the issues we deal with in the community, because what we see is that we have issues that may arise on many fronts in terms of governance, in terms of our culture, in terms of our social living.
Okay.
But we deal with them through a more colonial Western perspective.
Okay.
And we like to think that if we as a people could do a Sankofa is a Ghanaian expression which means to return and bring forward to the present, which means that you return to your culture and your heritage, your anciency, and take that which is good for application now, as we move forward to a future space. So in a nutshell, that is what the African Heritage does through a number of projects and representations, advocacy, and things like that. So that is who I am on one space. And then I am Simba. Simba is a Swahili word which means lion, right? So when people hear Simba, it's like the Lion King, yes, but it literally means lion.
I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, it does. It literally means lion. It's a Swahili word which means lion.
So Simba is the leader.
And well, yes, in a way. And I am part and parcel of the Rastafari community in Barbados, internationally, more so the Nyabingi order within Rastafari. Saying that, I would like to say officially that I'm here representing the thought space of the African Heritage Foundation from a Pan-African perspective.
Okay.
But obviously as Rastafari, I represent the average Rastafari brother and sister out there. Even though I wasn't sent officially by a Rastafari mansion, but as a always feel that wherever I go, I represent Rastafari.
Okay.
So that is basically.
Well, thank you, Simba, for giving us an introduction on yourself, an introduction on the African Heritage Foundation. So we're going to jump right into the discussion. We've been hearing the talks of it as it relates to the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes. And we've also seen representatives from your group at some of the committee meetings. I think we've also seen you as well, joint selection meetings. And we want to really hear what's your view, or what's the view of the African Heritage Foundation and also the Rastafarian community that uses the marijuana for recreational purposes, or rather trying to get the marijuana for legalized for recreational purposes. Give us a thought of what's going on, what's been going on, where you guys stand, so we all, the followers and listeners, can have an understanding of what's going on out there.
Okay. A couple of things to ground us on the what we would call the reasoning discussion. So since I was speaking those terms, one, we think that the term medical marijuana or medical cannabis is a misnomer, is a misrepresentation, right? All cannabis is medicinal, right? It's like I'm saying, let's develop a medicinal orange industry. All oranges have medicinal properties. You understand what I'm saying? So what you're really dealing with there is pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
Right? The standardizing of different components out of the plant.
Okay.
Which could be a good thing and a bad thing. And we would speak up on that as we get into it.
Yeah.
The position, again, the word recreational is also another misnomer. Right? We don't see there is anything as such as recreational. Right? What we call recreational is really can be seen as therapeutic in terms of stress relief. Stress is a major killer.
Yeah.
Right? So you hear the saying, all work and no play.
True.
Right? But it will kill Jack because he will get stressed. You know what I mean? That is why we go to a little party. Some people will drink a little rum. Some people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go to the beach and relax. Relaxation comes in many forms. You know, we go to a little party to feel good. You know, we dress up and thing. You know, that is part of stress relief. We don't look at it that way, right? But we lump it into this thing. You know, so when we say recreational, people's mind automatically goes to like partying, you know, you're fetting, you know, this sort of thing, which is not that, you know. So we more say adult use,
Okay.
right? And from the foundation's perspective, we're looking at the traditional indigenous use of herbs, of all herbs, including cannabis, in the discussion.
Okay.
So what we are saying is that cannabis should have a place in a medicinal bill from a traditional indigenous health perspective, medicinal point of view.
Okay, so if you had to shape the bill according to the traditional saints of the foundation or the traditional saints of Rastafari, how would you lead off the discussion on that part?
If I were the person drafting such a bill,
Yeah.
the first thing I would have to say is that, as I said before, that all cannabis is medicinal. As such, we would have to deal with the traditional uses first, right? Regulate that. Say, well, okay, we know that traditionally, the peoples of Barbados, the Caribbean, have been using this plant,
Okay.
right? For particular uses and things, right? So we will allow each household X amount of plants, you know what I mean? We will establish education on best growth methods, you know what I mean? What strains would be good for what, you know, common illnesses within family. Then I would then go to the standardizing of different components which they're doing now within a medicinal pharmaceutical framework. So, because remember, when you're talking about traditional use, what we're talking about is preventative medicine.
Yeah.
rather than medicine after the fact, right? So you get up and your mother tell you to drink your tea or drink fruit juice or to eat fruit something. It is so that you don't get sick, right? Most of us, when we get sick or when we start to feel sick, like a cold or something coming in, we run for a natural remedy. We run and drink some orange juice. We run and do this, thing, boost. You know, if that doesn't work, then we go to the doctor. If we realize that, you know, so what we are saying is that within that framework, then I would go to the medicinal thing where you have your oils, your capsules, you know, for particular more serious ailments and health issues that would need more regulating. You need this amount of CBDs, you know, within your cannabis. So you need to go to a specific space that you can get that, you know. So there are two different things, but all comes under, if you're saying that it is medicinal cannabis, let it be medicinal.
One of my questions, Ras Simba, you would have just spoken about having households having a certain amount of leadway to have a certain amount of plant within their houses. Now we know that marijuana at this point is a high seller on the market. It's also some people smoke it. What control methods that you guys are thinking of as it relates to, yes, you're having the medical marijuana in the house, but how do you control that medical marijuana in that house is for medical purposes, recreational purposes, or trafficking purposes? What methodology or what, I don't know, what's going to be there to say that I can't take my marijuana that I have today and cut it up and sell it? What's going to stop that?
Well, I don't even know. From our perspective, I wouldn't want to stop that. That is community trade amongst itself.
You
Cannabis.
But
Hear what I'm saying? Before you jump in,
okay.
what I am saying, if I'm allowed 2 or 3 plants, 5 plants, right? A limited quantity. And remember, we're saying that cannabis is just like any other herb. So I have tomatoes growing in my garden, right? I have a surplus of tomatoes. I have enough for my family. I give the neighbor some. A man come along, he say, Ras, send me 2 your tomatoes. I got children that need to go to school. I can sell 20 tomatoes. If I am saying that within my traditional use, if I grow a couple trees and my neighbor growing a couple trees, but they out or they haven't planted, and they say, Ras, come and thing, and you know, I will give you a little change, you know, thing, but to give me a piece of your root. Give me a piece of the ganja root, you know what I mean? I give you something like that. Because remember, we're focusing on smoking. And that is the problem with the conversation. The conversation focuses on smoking and not the use of cannabis. I smoke, but I smoke because it is illegal, and smoking is the easiest way for me to avoid the law. If it was illegal, I wouldn't smoke, because I know that smoking, not even just the herb, because every time I smoke a spliff, I'm smoking paper. So if I smoke 5 spliffs a day, I'm smoking 5 sets of paper. So after a year, you could imagine the amount of paper I have, burnt paper I have consumed.
I have never actually looked at that part.
So what I am saying is that when you see other cultures, and when you look at ancient cultures of uses of herbs, smoking was the least. Actually, smoking was reserved for those spiritual observances, right? The everyday uses of the ganja and thing, especially like within the Indian communities, where some of its earliest origins can be found, you know, was more in teas and rubs and, you know, aromatherapy and things like that. And then when you went to people that study the Vedas and the Hindu scripts and you know, the people that the Indians, they see with the locks and things, then you will see those people smoking because they needed to get that connection, right, to the God within.
But my problem,
and we will come to that.
my problem though, Ras Simba, is that we are talking about the fact that you're saying that you're okay with the fact that selling of the marijuana but we've also seen the damages it have done
To society.
to society as a turf war, as men calling police on each other.
Let me
As-
address that. Don't go any further.
Before you go any further, Ras Simba, I also wanted to make a point here. You just said that you see marijuana. Sorry, you just said that you see marijuana like any other herb, right? And whilst I will say that I am in full agreement with the legalization of marijuana and the legalization, decriminalization of marijuana, we must recognize that marijuana cannot be like any other herb because marijuana has what people say a highly addictive component. And you know, yes, we want it legalized and all of that, right? But it must be highly regulated. One, you look at you said that you don't mind if if you are allowed 5 plants and you only want to use 3 and you want to give 2 to your next door neighbor. But just like how we have cigarettes which are legal and and you say adults can get cigarettes, but anybody under the age of 18 cannot use cigarettes, right? What is your stance with reference to the use of marijuana? Because if you said that you don't mind your neighbor getting 2 of your plants, your neighbor could decide that I can take some of my plants, I can make some tea with it. I'm going to give my children mornings before they go to school some ganja tea, alright? So I wonder what is your stance and the African Heritage Foundation stance on the use of marijuana by persons on the age of 18 in Barbados.
Okay, a couple of things there to be answered, you know. But I would like to start off by saying, or asking a question.
Yes.
If you're all aware that the CARICOM commissioned a task force to research cannabis in the region. You know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you aware of the findings?
Not as yet.
Right? Well, the findings have been published since 2018. And I brought some of the findings here. I'm going to leave it with you because I know them by heart.
Thank you.
Right? One of the findings will tell you that a lot of the old stigma and the miseducation of cannabis has to be thrown out. Things like it is highly addictive. Conclusive research has thrown out those arguments years ago. The commission in their findings, it's right there,
Okay.
right, has found that. In terms of the use and regulations, as you say, I'm saying if I have 5 plants and my neighbor wants a piece of my root, whatever the case, right?
Yeah.
The government boy, what stops them from giving them to their children? At the Niger, at the last Joint Select Committee's meeting said, answer this question by saying good parenting. The same thing that stops that same parent from giving the child alcohol,
Yes.
right? Or other things that is not good for it, right? Stops that.
So
I don't want to have this sort of hypocrisy coming that the only dangerous thing in your home then will be cannabis. There are many dangerous things. I have children,
Okay.
right? Both of my girls born and growing Rastafari, right? They come up around her. They're not interested in cannabis because it just becomes like any other thing.
Okay.
So even when they were going to school, right? I've had many instances where they come home and say, you know, Daddy, you know, so many people talking about it, but they don't know it because they are just around it. They never took any interest in it.
Okay.
But just like any other thing that is dangerous in my house, whether it be bleach, whether it be rat poison, whether it be, but I don't drink, so I don't really have alcohol in the house. You know, anything that is detrimental to my children, yes, I mean, it is not going to be in harm's way.
But
I have
go ahead, Kimo.
2 questions. One is off topic, and one is just to add a bit to your point. Now, as it relates to the highly addictive stuff, I think that's a kind of an exaggeration, especially with the fact that we consume salt and sugar in abundance every day, and those
Sugar
are
is the biggest drug we have.
two of those are the most
Most
addictive
problematic.
substances we have on earth. And nobody places as much alarm or pressure on salt, on sugar.
Once get high blood pressure, once get diabetes.
Correct.
And
And
we have a sort of like epidemic in both.
yes, and currently the hospital bill is through the roof as it relates to trying to get people off diabetes and those type of diseases. I think the same marijuana would definitely help to cut down
You know
some of
what
that.
would be good if the people were really interested in finding out how cannabis really impacts. And you would hear that I don't use the term marijuana because it has been proven through research, and the commission has said today that the term marijuana was a racist term that was used for the plant because when the whole prohibition started, they were targeting Mexicans and black people,
Okay.
right? So we don't use that term because we see it as a racist term,
To use the term
right?
cannabis.
So we use the term cannabis, ganja, herb, right?
Weed.
But
But yet, those are some words that strong too.
but
I
again,
mean,
now
same as
these
Ghana.
are findings from the commission,
Let me see
right?
that, Jim.
So from people all
He
over the
has more
Caribbean.
copy.
Okay,
These are different things.
Oh, okay.
Another
Right?
question. This one is more off topic. No, while you were speaking, you made mention of schooling. I know there was a case where African sister, she had she home, or let's say it was a gentleman, he homeschooled his kids and came on a serious fire from the Ministry of Education as it relates to that. Now, I am supportive of the idea of homeschool if you choose to, right? And watching the videos with the kids, they were highly intelligent. They use words that are basically not used for kids in a public scenario. So what is the African heritage position as it relates to homeschooling? The children are providing we say African
Something that with the Muslims.
outlook on education as opposed to sending them to the traditional educational system.
The particular case you're talking about, the African Heritage Foundation was the organization that represented the children from the point,
I remember that case.
right? We were the ones who championed that and won the case for the parents because it was their right, right? As you said, there was a video that was circulating around Facebook of the child thing. I personally took that video and posted, and it blew up from there. I still tutor those children to this day.
Okay.
I had them yesterday. What today? What, Saturday? Yeah, I had them yesterday, Friday. They come to me from Tuesday to Friday. They go to another person for different things. So their education is being looked after. They have never been to school and they have never been to the doctor. One child is 15 and one is 12.
So
That would be credited to the marijuana.
Right?
So you
I'm
check.
not
check
crediting anything to
So,
marijuana, but what
yes,
I'm crediting it to,
Mhm.
right? Because it's a serious thing for me.
Oh, vaccines.
Right? They've never had a vaccine. What the African Heritage also does is to provide the exemption form
Okay.
needed for persons that don't want to get vaccines. Like my daughters, neither of them have ever been vaccinated. The little one is 18 and the big one is 24. She can be 25 this year. Right?
Okay.
So I was going to say that if people were really serious about finding out about the impact of cannabis in a community, what better community to do it in than the Rastafari community?
I agree.
But what are you guys doing? What are some of the programs you're doing outside of the Joint Selection Committee? What are some of the initiative of the African Heritage Foundation or the Rastafarian community to educate people? Because while I'm not a huge follower of the Rastafarian community, I've still not heard a lot as to what you guys doing, how you guys educating, are you guys putting on your own events, are you guys putting on your own joint selection meeting, so that other people can understand that there's much more to the plant, because all we are hearing the conversation around is the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes. But then it seems like there's a fight between the two. Like, okay, you want it for sacramental purposes as being you as a African community, but I feel like there's a tug of war over here that you gotta understand it for medical purposes, and we ain't doing the recreational purposes. It seems like a tug of war.
There are a couple of things. That's two questions. The first question, in terms of the African Heritage Foundation, we have a website, right? The website is africanheritage.com. African is spelled with a K.
Okay.
Right? So AFRIKAN heritage.com. If you go in the search engine and type in cannabis, you're going to see at least 30-40 articles on cannabis.
This is inside the African Heritage Foundation.
On the
website?
website.
On the website.
Okay.
On the website, not on Facebook, on our website. We have a
Okay.
website.
Right, no, I just want because
Right,
you
yeah.
said if doing search engine.
If you
So,
see, type in cannabis, so you will see a long list of articles,
Okay.
right, that relate to different educational facts and findings when related to cannabis.
Okay.
Like one of the articles looked at the impact of cannabis in Uruguay, which was the first country to legalize.
Okay.
How they did it, how it has impacted.
So in,
We have
in
looked at
Uruguay,
the,
cannabis is completely legal.
Yeah,
Right.
it's completely legal, but it is regulated. Things like you can't sell tourists. To sell, you have to have a license from a particular retailer.
Okay.
Certain amount. So it is not like they say, well, free. You can have any amount of cannabis. You can do whatever you want. Nowhere in the world has done that.
Would you embrace that model, the Uruguay model in Barbados?
For the most part, it has had problems,
Okay.
right? But the problems related more to trying to control the pharmaceutical aspect of it, in relation to the traditional uses.
Okay.
But they have ironed out that.
Mhm.
But what I see in all the spaces that have moved to medicinal cannabis, which remember I'm saying is a good thing to
Yeah.
standardize for a particular reason,
Mhm.
everything in context. But all these spaces have dealt with the people first.
Okay.
Whether they want to say it was recreational, whether it was, at the Joint Select Committee, there was a lady from the AG's office from Jamaica.
Okay. Yeah, I remember I saw her.
A Jamaican lady from
Yeah.
the AG's office, right? And she was kept talking about the Jamaican model this and Jamaican model that. But she wasn't telling people that in Jamaica, the first thing they did was let the people have 2 ounces and 5 trees.
2 ounces and 5.
5 plants. So you're
Okay.
allowed to plant 5
But not to
plants,
sell it.
right? And then, but not to sell.
So how
Right.
does
But
the
that can't
authorities
be
know
controlled.
that you are not selling your plants?
Right? But what they're saying is that to grow in a big set, you know what I mean? To think. So authorities can know, which in the same document that you have said, the commission said it is impossible
Mm-hmm.
to police somebody if they have
Right, that's my
to
thing.
you know what I mean? So what you're talking about, if you're talking about going out on the street and selling a whole set of herb and thing,
Yeah.
that is a different conversation. What I am saying is that if I have more of something, if I
Yeah.
have 2 drinks home,
Yeah.
and I need a $2 to go somewhere, and my buddy want a drink, and I say, man, give me a $2 for this drink because I need $2.
That's
what I'm saying.
bartering.
That's a little, which is
But-
an ancient
but
African
then again,
system
I
of
think-
doing
Yeah.
things.
Ras Simba, that may be a far-fetched kind of ideology for me. You have the Barbados on unemployment rate is so high.
Yeah.
Already a number of our young people are engaged in either legalization of marijuana by selling
Mm-hmm.
or by smoking. A lot of them, in my opinion, is going to the route of trying to sell.
Yeah.
Now, with you giving an average person or average household, so we have to differentiate if you're meaning person or household, because I get that. Then we having so much of our unemployed young people. I mean, this is to me like giving them ammunition
Mm-hmm.
to go there now and sell, because again, you cannot police
But if
it so much. We don't have enough manpower. And then the second phase to that,
mm-hmm.
and I would like to understand again, is that are you saying when you're talking about having persons being able to have 5 plants, are you talking about persons, or you're talking about household? Because if 5 people live in my house,
25 plants.
that's 25
I
plants.
think I made it clear that it's 5 plants per household. That's the Jamaican model. That's what I
Yeah.
said. 5 plants
Okay.
per household. CARICOM has stated,
I can see war in the family already.
right? Well, if you have an ignorant family, there's got war in every family.
But for
Right.
weed,
They've got war in family for the simplest of things. Mostly land and when people dead and things. So that is a standard. So I want to attribute that to cannabis.
But
What
no,
I'm
no.
going to say, listen to me. What I'm going to say,
Mhm.
right? In response to your question before,
mm,
right? It has been proven through research
Mhm.
that the money attributed to cannabis that a lot of the youth and people in general
Yeah.
go after is attributed to the law and the prohibition.
I agree. I can agree
And
with
the
you
research
100%
has
here.
showed that in spaces, even with big Mexican drug cartels,
Yeah.
That the violence has gone down because it has interrupted the trade. So whereas a man now is not going to see it as profitable, and that is a big concern for even a lot of the youth on the street, that if it legalized now, right, they can't sell it and make the money that they used to make. But because they're ignorant, meaning uninformed, right, of the many benefits of cannabis and what can be done, right, in terms of use and things that you can make and sell, you know what I mean? There is more money there.
But they don't want to go that
Right.
route.
But do they know about the route? That is the question. There has not been any national program or education about cannabis. None.
Alright, so
Our
we have-
organization, the website now talk about
I
you
am-
can
I'm on
research
it.
anywhere, right?
yeah.
And you will see that we have the most information, right, to date here.
The only link I may give you on that, though, Ras Simba, is that this would need to go to social media where everyone is. I know people.
The links are all, every time an
no,
article is put up, it is shared on social media.
Okay.
First,
Remember,
furthermore,
that's where your traffic is, social media.
our organization, we have Instagram, we have other younger members, because I see a little grey. We have younger members that deal with the
But
social,
you still young?
the social media and thing. I help with the Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We have a page on Facebook, and every article that you see that is on that website has been filtered through every social media platform
Okay.
that we're on.
Let me stop you just a minute there, guys, because we have a comment here from Deveron. Again, you can feel free to post your comments. Feel free to engage Ras Simba and the host of the show, and the co-host of the show, rather, because it's more than one person. And we would take any questions that you have. So Deveron is saying, Ras Simba mentioned the political aspect of cannabis historically. In Barbados, there has been heavy policing of Rastafarian community that has affected their family household. The psychos, read that. I'm trying to read that, but my eyes blurry.
Their socio-economic standings and created a negative stigma against their community. Was Ras Simba's perspective on the reparations as part of the future
Legislation.
legislative regime that governs cannabis?
Reparations for us comes in a number of ways. There's monetary reparation. Remember, reparation means to repair,
Yes.
right? Remember, it is only from like the mid-30s, the early 40s that this prohibition has come, and cannabis has played an essential role in the lives of African families, in the families of indigenous people on the whole.
Yeah.
Right? So it is part and parcel of our call for legalization that fits into the mode of some sort of reparation within that social justice, coming from a legal platform for Rastafari, but not just for Rastafari, but for the community in general.
Right. Okay. Well, while I agree of the idea of reparations,
This one about the money.
right? No, Sir Hillary has been pushing reparations for slavery. Okay, I believe in reparations, but not in the sense that he chose to pursue. I think reparations should be in the form of lands.
Give us the meaning of reparation just for those listening and understand the term.
Right. Reparations is traditionally came about due to the fact that we were property, or we would say slaves, coming out to the trade, and the idea of reparations is to pay back Africans for the distress that was caused,
Compensation.
or compensation. But just to get I would say a dictionary meaning from it.
Well, you know we like to debrief these things.
Yes.
So
The making of amends for a wrong one has done by paying money to or otherwise helping those who have been wronged. Now, while I agree with reparations in principle, I do not agree with reparations in cash necessarily. I believe reparations should be in lands. Reparations should be in assets that could generate monies that could repair families, because $1 million cannot repair generations of families. $1 million after the taxes are taken out, you back to square one basically. Well, it is a start, yes, but that I don't think that is where we should look. Now, we're talking reparations for the Rastafarian community in Barbados as it relates to marijuana. I think the appropriate place to start would be the granting of lands, if you don't have already, and I would call it first dibs on planting marijuana to either sell locally or to export, and to give you the opportunity to own shares within business in this country to be able to transform the Rastafarian community to a more I won't say equal sense, but to have it equally respected as a religion across Barbados and across the wider Caribbean, and to make it more cohesive in that sense. So rotate on that.
Kimari, I want to disagree with you just a little bit.
Raise your voice, sir, man.
Sorry, Kimari would like to disagree with you just a little bit. When you spoke about reparations, you said that you believe it should be more in the form of land, and you said
Assets
and that sort of stuff. But why is it that when black people talk about reparations, that we are afraid to say that we deserve to get compensation in a monetary form, and when other races talk about their reparations, they get it in a monetary form? Because the reality situation is that when you look at the experience of the black man versus the experience of people of other races and religions who have gone through various atrocities and that sort of stuff, we were taken from out of our beds in Africa, placed on a ship in the bottom. The water was thrown down there. We had to do all number one and number two down there. You had to eat down there, and every now and then, as a sign of obedience or an example, one of us would be taken and shot and thrown overboard. Or when we were brought into the Caribbean, we were brought as slaves. We were worked 18 hours a day. Every now and then, they would take our children and put them as bait for dogs and alligators and all this other stuff.
You're gonna make it to
Yeah,
they're
we
gonna
got
stop
topic.
it.
I would
They're gonna
like
stop it
to reply to that in terms of
I can back money short and it will
Just
pass
let
over
me
to
get,
you.
don't forget, let's just give Ras Simba a chance to
Well,
respond.
it understand where you're coming from, Jermaine. You're accepting some money is still playing the game with the oppressor, Jermaine. If you understand, if you are awarded money with no education or not understanding how to spend money, you get back up broke, like most people who win the lotto. So just looking to say, give me money for all you paying, no make no sense. That ain't gonna bring the healing. That can just help you to exaggerate the problem some more, help you to self-destruct some more.
But you do
What I'm
recognize that
saying
the planters, you do recognize that the planters, when slavery was ended, they got compensation.
and the Jews got compensation.
Exactly.
The difference is, and why I would agree with you, brother, right? And I see where you're going, Jermaine. If I was a colonial power now, right, I would give compensation. I would say, what? I give everybody $1 million if I could afford it.
Yeah.
Right? Because you know what happened? I know within 10 to 20 years, I would have 60-70% of my money back.
Gotta spend it back with you.
If I have to, look around this room and tell me how many things you can see that have been produced by black people. Or you think that were produced by black people.
I would hope the paintings.
Right? Now, Marcus Garvey said that we have become the ultimate consumers.
Yeah, I agree.
Look at the shirts we're wearing.
You hate that football.
Look at, I mean, I know, I'm not trying to insult anyone, you know what I mean? We pay more attention to football. You ever hear the fellas talk about football? They know who coaching, who should be sub, who should get sent to this place. You know what I mean? You would think that they have shares in the thing.
The caution is
Ask them about their heritage and their culture.
Can't tell you.
Can't tell you.
But where
We
are
had
we
this
fall down with
conversation,
that then?
right?
In terms of
School.
educating them?
School.
Okay.
As I had this conversation about 2 weeks ago on the block where I was going to play dominoes, right? And I said, this is the Ivy. I said, imagine every household in the Ivy was to get $1 million as reparation. What you would think would happen? You know the answers? Big party. Brandy's gonna buy. This kind of thing. You see where the money going already?
Gone
Back
already.
to the metropole.
I think that's going back to the area that you're in, because you're gonna ask that same question somewhere else. You get
Well, in my community, you're investing in this. So
Yeah, I mean,
But they're
but
trying to show
you
you
black
so-
community will hear that, but it's who you ask the question to.
But this is when we're talking about reparations for black people, right? And the argument is that no matter what community, if I go into the heights and terraces of black people, they want to buy house, cars and things. Do we make cars?
No.
So it is the same thing coming down. on different levels of the society.
Mhm.
Wherever we spend our money, it will be with someone
No.
else.
And they'll never be with ourselves either.
Hardly.
Hardly with
A
ourselves.
German say, buy a little painting or some furniture maybe, right?
Mm.
A laptop? No.
Mm.
Right? Not saying that we haven't done these things,
Mhm.
right? And that's part of the whole argument, that we don't get credit,
Mhm.
but we have not really fought for these things, and we have not inspired.
What do you think?
So we have a university, top of the notch, right? Mostly children want to go in there, or people go in there to come out to work for someone,
Yeah, I agree.
right? At a high level, but
Mhm.
working for someone. We have
Wait,
not,
just let me get this
we
question
are
in.
not, have
Small
not
question.
been
I
created.
just want to get this
So
question in.
based on what he is saying, right? Reparation has to be a multifaceted something. It has to be approached through different areas. Education is one.
Mm.
Being able to return to your power base, because remember, everyone else who has been oppressed, from Japan to the Jews, they have a power base in terms of a land, a space that they come from.
Yeah.
We come from Africa, but we don't want to see that. So we should not only just go back to Africa, but have the ability
Mhm.
to travel. Ask the question, why, if Africa is so close to us,
Mhm.
why we have to go to England? Why it is so expensive for us to make that sort of pilgrimage?
Mhm.
Each and every black person, I have never been because I cannot afford it. I would love to go to Africa.
You should.
So if somebody is seeing me out there that has the money to send me, please,
Just-
but seriously,
yeah.
I would love to go. But I'm saying that it should be part and parcel of our reparations.
Mhm.
Should be the ability to travel home, back and forth.
Mm.
Caribbean governments, if they were really in tune with their people, because it's mostly black people,
Yeah.
we should have some sort of transportation going on.
Kenya was here, so we
back
should,
and forth
be able to
and-
connect somewhere.
Right? But if you notice, every time our brothers and sisters from the continent come here in any numbers, it's always problems.
Mm.
Well.
Just wanna jump back onto the medical marijuana a little bit. I don't Miss Roach. I can't get the other names. McConnell Roach. Blessings flow to all.
Nana
But-
man, Shamor.
Shamor, sorry, would have asked. Sorry, my apologies. Would have asked the host if they would have done research on the cannabis or hemp, its and its historical use and how it became illegal. Our job here is not so much on the research side, because that's where the research is sitting on our right, and that's why to have Ras Simba here to discuss these things. So no offense, but we have done our research.
Mhm.
But this is why we have someone from the African Heritage Foundation, from the Rastafari Foundation, because we are trying to get information out to people that may not have ever done a research or may not have ever looked at anything to do with legalization, or may have just been hearing what they hear through the media. But this is the source here that we thought would have been a great guest, and he's so far doing a wonderful job. But just want to tie back in, as I said, as much as possible to the medical marijuana. We have a number of people logging on now, and we really want to get that conversation tied in.
I wanna ask a question, and this
Is it pretty the medical marijuana?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, go ahead.
This is coming out of what you just said. Where you talked about black people, and where you made the point that we go to universities and we're coming out even at a high level to work for someone. Now, as we know, the Joint Select Committee is debating now on the legalization of medical marijuana, but we are now here talking about legalization of marijuana in a whole. Well, not marijuana, because we let us use cannabis, because you have alerted us that marijuana itself is a racist term, right? Now, what plans does the African Heritage Foundation and the Rastafari community in Barbados, what have you put in place to ensure that when cannabis becomes legal in this country, that you are not left out of the loop? Because I know what usually happens is that when certain people see the economic value in something,
I don't think it's worth it.
all of a sudden they jump on board and they bring all the resources to bear, and they are the ones who reap all the profits, and those who are more or less the consumers and those who have been fighting for that right are usually left by their side. So I would like to know what plans the Rastafari community and the African Heritage Foundation have put in place to ensure that that is not the case in this scenario with you guys?
Um, it is said that those that make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Okay.
We understand that outside of any violence, am I talking about violence in terms of advocacy? We're talking about strong advocacy and not violence in terms of harming anybody or, you know.
Mm-hmm.
What we have done a number of things, like we have conducted an online survey. So if you were to go on the website, one of the first articles you would see is a survey, and people are still free to take the survey.
Okay.
We have shared the information from this survey with the Minister of Agriculture, and we plan to do so with the AG and the Prime Minister.
You want to share the results here as well one time?
I have the results here. They're in a kind of 26 or 28 pages, right? I'll have to kind of decipher them for you. But they're particular questions. 162 people took these, and these were online.
Okay.
Because we didn't have the resources that we wanted to do to print physical things. And
Alright, give us a look at this.
right? So we asked particular questions. One of the questions the survey asked was like, if people were aware of the changing attitude towards cannabis internationally. Most people said yes. We asked if they were aware of the impacts on the places that have legalized cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was kind of like more than no. Right? So say like about a 30 to 70 ratio to
Okay.
people that didn't know. Ask the question, if people were aware that there was that CARICOM commissioned a task force to investigate cannabis. It was like a 50-50.
Okay.
If they were aware of the findings, 10 people said that they were aware. And about 3 of them come from the African Heritage Foundation.
Whoa, so people really
Right,
in
people
real.
don't know. And I think really and truly,
Mm-hmm.
before any of this conversation should have gone on nationally,
Mhm.
there should, I mean, like, on caricom.org, the findings are there,
Okay.
right? But most people don't even know that they can go there to find it.
Most people don't even know CARICOM.org.
Thank you. So what I am saying is that I think it was the duty of the government to make the findings public.
I agree.
If they did that, what they're doing now, they could not do. Remember, as the brother says that they're talking medical cannabis on one hand
Mhm.
and every other thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The AG has said that they will deal with that through a referendum,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're saying that they can't deal with that because of treaties that Barbados and conventions that they're signed on to,
Yeah.
right? But that is not the case. Because when I represented at that same meeting and I said, so what about the UN convention that speaks about religious tolerance, right? And talks about what limitations and should or should not be placed on the freedom of religion, which did not constitute what Rastafari does with cannabis. He had no answer. Now for this second one, he came and he said, and you can look at it again, after Sister Felicia from the African Heritage Foundation got up and she spoke, right? He said that, you know, there are now some, he understands that there are strong legal implications for legalization, you know, based on other treaties and things. But he wasn't saying so all the time, right?
Okay.
When you look at that now, right, it says that these old treaties and things should not be considered.
Okay.
Well, so
It is there, right? So it is like the AG is trying to sell you a trick. Or trying to trick you to say, well, they can't do this because of this, but he's lying. It is not, you can't do that because of that.
so is it
You
a
can't
case
do it
that
because you don't want to do it.
so is it a case that you believe they're trying to capitalize commercially on the medicinal marijuana?
Everything is money. Slavery was a money. Was a
Yes,
money.
yes, I understand that. I just understand
I just
that.
want to welcome
But
Nesta
just,
from, I think Nesta's from Dominica. I just want to, if I correct Nesta, welcome.
Right.
So you have some regional people tuning in. Go ahead, keep on.
Right. Is it a case where they're trying to capitalize on this so-called medicinal marijuana, and by just trying to garner support, they're trying to throw you out the scrap and say, well, we ain't said to say X amount of lands for the races, but did they ever take your findings and your research and your long history into real consideration as it relates to drafting and constructing bills?
I don't think so. The powers that be, every time you hear them speak, they will say, oh, they're having consultations with Rastafari and interested other
Groups.
interested groups,
Mhm.
right?
Uh,
But you ain't seeing that reflected in what they're coming out with. So talking to me just for the sake of talking to me don't make no sense. You're wasting my time and my energy.
I always say that
So-
I always say that they like to
So-
invite you to things
So-
and
so-
you're not
so-
included in
I'm not
things.
included in things, you know what I mean?
So,
They're
so,
inviting me to
so
things.
basically, you're being used for publicity purposes.
No, because it's being used to soften the blow. Because right now, because remember, politics is all about votes and people.
Yeah,
The interest of the
understand.
people. You understand that?
Yeah.
So you have to make it look like if everybody is being considered.
Maybe
Everybody is
you're
not being considered,
Or
right?
everything is not being
and
considered.
everything is not being considered in this whole thing. Because remember, when this first conversation first started, it was with the Prime Minister speaking to a group of well-to-do business people is either in Sandy Lane or San or one of these big things. Remember, Forbes
big boys
magazine
were
said
involved
that
first.
cannabis is the next Microsoft.
Yes, it
Right?
is.
It is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
And
Growing to-
Rastafari should share inside of
having
it.
this legislation not go through hinders big business in Barbados. If it wasn't for big business interests, all this talk of marijuana or cannabis would not be on the table. So it is not about if you're
Wow.
interested in my health or my well-being or my rights. You know what I mean? You have violated the rights of Rastafari and every Barbadian. You know what I mean? With this particular law, you know, by trickery, right? So what we are saying now, I personally, and again, remember, I'm not speaking officially for Rastafari, but I will say that I went to the Naibengi Tabernacle only last Sunday, you know, and the brothers and sisters there saying that, you know, we as the ancient order, the ancient spiritual order of Rastafari need to have a stronger voice,
Oh, yeah.
I
right?
agree.
And I have been in talks with lawyer. He said it. This is Brother Douglas Trotman.
Yeah.
At the last meeting, he alluded it that we have plans on taking the government to court.
The Rastafari community or
Me
you personally?
Right.
Okay.
me personally, with the support of the Rastafari community.
Well, it's,
Right.
it's not in court yet, so I guess you could speak
No.
a little bit about it.
But no, it's not in court. But we wanted really, right, for this process to happen to see.
So under which you said take them to court? Which ground? Under what grounds?
Personal use.
You don't sell the legal strategy here, right?
Right.
Because they're
No,
listening.
Alright.
no, because
Not talk.
this is,
You know
I am
what
only
I said?
saying so no,
Mhm.
because
Yeah,
he
breaking news.
himself at the last joint select committee meeting, you know what I mean, spoke about it,
Okay, okay.
right? So it is out there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
if you look at Douglas Trotman's, his presentation, I think it's one of the third to the last presentation for the day,
Yes, it was.
right? You would hear him speaking about that, and you would hear him say that we haven't started any action yet because we wanted to give
Them a
the
chance.
government a chance to do the right thing.
Yes.
And in your opinion,
Right.
they are.
No, they're not.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I have said, because when the Attorney General got up and said that he didn't see the difference between sacrament and recreation and things, that was insulting. You cannot tell me that my sacrament and my spirituality, the essence of my being, you want to determine by a public vote,
Wow.
right? When within our constitution and international constitution,
Mhm.
it is my human right.
Well,
It is a fundamental right.
I
I'm not
agree.
stand up to decide on.
It is a fundamental right to use the cannabis.
Right? Yes.
Oh.
You know what I mean? For
As long as you use it for religious
your
purposes.
Religious purposes.
spiritual purposes.
Wow.
Right? It is there. It is enshrined in it is guaranteed within our constitution, within our Barbados constitution. That is why the brother in St. Kitts, why he won his case. That is why the people in South Africa, they won their case.
Wow.
Right? But the people are not being told this. So when the AG got up last time, you know what I mean, and he said that he's aware that there are legal grounds,
Mhm.
right, for the legalization, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
based on not only our constitution, on international constitutions and treaties, you know, right there and then as a lost case for them.
So you're not going to take the gesture on behalf of the government about the discussion about lands?
The government has provided 60 acres of land to the Rastafari organization they recognize right now, which is ICAR, which is the Aichiruganim Council for the Advancement of Rastafari.
Mm-hmm.
Aichiruganim is the original indigenous name of Barbados. It means the red lands,
Yeah.
right?
Which you
Every
fall,
island-
what's the African heritage
Right.
falls under?
What?
You fall underneath that?
No,
Or-
no, no,
oh,
no.
okay.
We are a separate entity in ourselves.
Mm.
I'm saying, cause remember you saying that as a Rasta man, I represent Rastafari on my own, but I represent the African Heritage Foundation, which is a charitable organization, a Pan-African organization,
Mm-hmm.
right?
One.
So the organization ICARE, right, within their representation of the Rastafari community,
Mm-hmm.
they have championed and won for the community 60 acres of land for food security purposes.
But can you use this land to, once the legislation goes through, to grow marijuana on as well?
No.
Marijuana
Be-
no food.
Sorry, not marijuana.
Right.
Cannabis.
Cannabis.
Let us
So
use
my
Cannabis,
question, how
two
this tie
different
in?
things.
How this tie in then to, we are hearing thoughts that yes, you're giving the Rastafarian community land, but we always thought it was land to grow
cannabis.
cannabis on.
No.
It's
See,
food
that's
security.
what-
That was a mistake by the media. Right?
Okay, so that was
In
on
that
the media.
conversation with Minister Ware, right? He never said that it was for cannabis.
Hmm.
The Rastafari community was allotted 60 acres of land,
Mm-hmm.
right, for food security purposes, because that was the conversation.
So
you
that's a
believe that we
separate conversation
Right, yeah.
in it. In its
No, what he
entirety.
is saying, right?
Hmm.
If they were to be granted a license, like
Mhm.
in St. Vincent,
Yeah.
right? The government granted the Rastafaris and Rastafari brothers and sisters, even the same house in Bingi,
Mm-hmm.
a license
Mm-hmm.
to plant medicinal cannabis, but they
Yeah.
still can't use this weed that they planted in,
Why?
right? Because the license is for the industry. They don't have the sacramental right to use it for themselves as yet.
Correct.
So they have to
So-
sell
so-
back the government.
So-
exactly.
They have to sell back the
Right.
So I
Yeah,
plant,
you
I
can't-
plant
you
a
can't-
crop and can I use it?
You can't use it.
This
You still have
is
to
the
get.
hypocrisy of the thing,
You
brother.
still have to get.
So
So
this is-
written.
So
to
this is
use
what,
it.
so this is what the Rastas in St. Vincent are fighting for. So even if they was to give the Rastas a license here to plant cannabis for the industry,
Mm-hmm.
it would not sit well. You cannot give me a license to plant cannabis for you
Mm-hmm.
when cannabis, the plant itself, is sacred to me,
Mm.
Yeah.
and you're stopping me
From using
from
it.
using it for my own personal edification.
Mm.
I understand where you're coming from. And you see, that is the party conversation that usually gets lost, right? We need to recognize that you must, the same way you talk about reparations, people, we have to come to a point where we recognize that if you're going to legalize marijuana, if you're going to even the medical cannabis, that individuals must have the right to be able to plant. And I personally, and I am not afraid to say it, I believe that if it is going to become an industry in Barbados, whether it be for medical or recreational usage, that the original people whom have faced the brunt of the law enforcement in this country and those whom have been unfeared, imprisoned, and all sort of things done to them and said about them, they should be the first ones to, and I will say the same way, the Rastafari community should be the first ones to benefit economically from this plan.
That's a hypocrisy of the government too, cause they pass a clause in that bill that stipulates that if you have ever been charged under the Drug Prevention and Control Act, even if it's down to a 5 bag,
Mm-hmm.
you're not eligible for a license.
So let me make a correction there, because the people then write in and tell you that you're not totally correct. The act, the bill says, right, that if you have been charged an indictable charge,
Mm-hmm.
so not like a 5 bag or a 10 piece, I think, something that is indictable,
Yeah.
right?
I got that here.
If you have been charged with an indictable charge in the past, then you can be part of the industry, right? Indictable charge is a man coming across the water with 500 pounds and thing, and he get catch. That's an indictable charge.
A large
But
You get large
Trafficking and-
quantities,
trafficking and
that's
stuff
I mean
like-
large quantities.
Mm-hmm.
My thing, the African Heritage Foundation position is that if you have been found guilty of a charge, indictable or not, and you have done your time,
Time served.
you have paid, why should you be penalized again for something that you've already served your time for.
But you see the hypocrisy in it, right?
So I don't understand where the thinking of that came from.
But you see, the hypocrisy is that yesterday it was your worst plan in the world, right? Today, because others outside of Barbados recognize the economic value of it.
But they could recognize it before we.
Right, they recognize it. Hold
Question, Jermaine.
Yeah.
Again, pose a question to Jermaine.
Mm-hmm.
Based on what you just said, what the government is doing. Huh? To Jermaine. Okay, you're a finance. You are managing a bank, and you received person who had applied to the bank to work in the bank.
Yeah.
And you, in doing your research, you have found out that these persons were fired from previous banks or previous financial institutions for stealing money. Will you hire that person?
That is a completely unrelated question. I'll tell you the reason why. Hold on.
The question is, will you hire that person? Yes or no?
No. Let me defend my answer.
But you don't answer yet?
No.
Hold on.
All right.
One minute. Just let me know. First, I just plugged in a charger. Just let me know if the sound quality is affected. Please let us know. Right. So we just want to know if the sound quality is affected. Go ahead, guys.
Okay. Now, stealing, right, is an offense which is listed in laws of Barbados 1, and is also listed as part of the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not steal. Right. So from biblical times, it is recognized that that is not right. Now, if a man was fired from another bank for stealing money, and I had to make a determination in my bank as to if I want that man to work in my organization, one, I have to verify that because firing a man for stealing doesn't mean a man actually stole money. It means that allegation was out there, and the bank, to protect its reputation, get rid of the person. Alright?
Let's jump back on topic quickly, please.
No, we can jump back on topic. So I would have to ensure that the allegation is a credible allegation.
Jermaine, the allegation is credible. The person stealing money, they were fired. Will you hire the person? Yes or no?
Possibly not.
Okay, then go back to the same thing.
Can I take a...
Wait, let Ras Simba speak.
I think... in fact, let me because I think I know where you're going with this. And I don't think the analogy that you're using quite fits the cannabis scenario. Because if I had a bank and I know somebody get thing for stealing, even if they do time and thing, right? Because stealing, the sign as being a black.
Yeah.
I would have concerns.
But then the government concern isn't because, okay, you trafficking, you bring in marijuana into the country in heaps and bounds to make money off of it. Who's to say that you will not try some way, some form of fashion, illegally, to make more money outside of what is legal?
I got a question.
Hold on, before let me have a comment.
Right? There is no way that you can ensure that. You have people that wealthy people that still deal in corruption to make more money. Millionaires is being corruption to make more money. What I am saying is that the government themselves are saying to get this industry where it needs to be, we need the advice of what they're calling legacy farmers. People like me,
Agreed.
that used to plant in the bush, that was seen as illegal, right? UE is now willing to work with people like me. Without these people that were bringing in 500 pounds, the big traders, we would have no cannabis culture in Barbados.
So they should be recognized
Right?
as
So
leaders.
as leaders.
Hey, where are you?
That's what I mean.
100%.
So this is why I say the analogy does not fit, right? Because if you understand the landscape and context of cannabis in Barbados, you will understand if not for these people, right? We wouldn't even be having this conversation. Barbados wouldn't even have a starting point.
Wait, hold on, Ras Simba, got a question here for you. Somebody started their own watch party. Why haven't the Rastafarian community done more over the years to elevate their religion and educate the youth through schools like other religious schools in Barbados? It seems like they just want to jump on legalization of cannabis. Have they done any studies in this area at all? That's a question being posed.
Rastafari would be the experts in cannabis in terms of research, living experience, I would say for myself, as a Rastafari in the community, we have been involved in the cannabis conversation, me personally, for over 20 years. So it is not a now thing. We have been involved in the conversation of entrepreneurship in Barbados from the incept of Rastafari in Barbados officially in 1974. We have been involved in the discussion of educational reform from that time till now. At one time, Rastafari was persecuted for not sending the children to school. Then you were persecuted when they went to school and they had locks, and that was a different problem.
Yeah.
When you want to take them back out of school now, it was a problem. Remember, unlike the other religious groups and spiritual groups, we had something that kept us from advancing in our social position, which we were not willing to let go of. And that was the same cannabis. There was nothing else that these other religions have, you know what I mean, that was against the law, that they were persecuted, stereotyped and things for, like we were, because of cannabis. And if you understand the history of Rastafari and the development from 1892, right, to the early 1930s to now, it is not only cannabis we had to fight for. We had to fight for locks. You've seen a lot of people walking about with a lot of steady locks and things now. It is because people like me had to fight, and elders, because not even me, because I never had any kind of tribulation. Elders, there was a time that if a police saw you with locks, they would tie your locks together and tell one man run so, one man run so.
Seriously?
In Barbados?
In Barbados, brother. Do you know that history?
But that,
I heard about it.
So so this is what I'm trying to show you. We approach things from ignorance, not knowing. So the Rastafari community had to fight against so many different things. When I first stopped eating meat I stopped eating meat in what, 1991?
whoa.
Right? Some of you ain't even born.
I was born.
Right?
I think
Yeah.
all-
No,
I think
no,
all
no,
of us
right?
were born.
You were Marky Mark?
No,
Alright, at least one. Right? No. When I came home, my grandmother would say, so Paul, what you can eat? If you're eating meat, you can die, you can get skinny, you can die this and that. That was the general thought. No, being a vegetarian and healthy living is a big thing. In my time, not eating meat had nothing to do with health, you know.
Ras Simba, put a pin in it quickly. A comment just came through. C. Shimona McConnell Roach. He said, in Barbados family, happened to me in the 80s. Police hold you and cut your locks.
Yeah. Sometimes with a broken bottle and thing. Right. Now you say Shimona, and Shimona brother, since you're listening, you know, the conversation in terms of economics. Remember we were talking about economics and cannabis.
Yeah.
There is the hemp, right, which is another plant within the cannabis family. It doesn't produce the amount of THC. Now THC is the component, as you would know, in the cannabis plant.
Yeah.
That gives you that euphoria, that psychoactive
correct
ingredient.
Yeah.
The hemp doesn't have that. The hemp is the industrial version of the plant now, where you can make rope, paper, clothes. Now, if the Barbados government was really interested, right, in the economics of the cannabis plant, they were taking a serious look at hemp production.
I have two questions. One, do you recognize the guys who work out on this yacht with the marijuana as leaders? Two, as it relates to...
What do you mean, the white boys?
Two.
What was black? What was black?
That's a very interesting question.
Wait,
What was black?
Answer that. And two, do we, as it relates to the Rastafari community and this person talking about the advancement of Rastas, does he mean in the concept of material stuff? Would he like to see Rastas building bigger houses, driving Mercedes and those type of cars and what's not? I think persons need to understand the philosophy of a group, regardless be it Rasta or not, before they seek to cast any aspersions on them. As far as I know, Rastafari does not have a material belief in some aspects. Well, it's okay to have improved quality of life in a Western sense. Bigger house, bigger car, and those type of materials things are not quote unquote you would say the way of of Rastas, right? And particularly too in the eastern side, but people are happier. People are more happy spiritually. They have more freedom and those type of things. So could you basically explain so the public would
And you're
understand?
very right, you know.
Before you answer that, Lee Bajan, please says, please be aware, African Heritage Foundation is not, but it has members from all faiths, including the Rastafari. You see, this is the second thing you post. I just letting you know, Ras Simba has made that clear several times. So we are aware that.
Yeah, brother, because we've had a problem with the media saying that it's a Rastafari organization, and we do have a lot of members that
Are not Rastas,
you know.
Because I think I went to
know,
sign up
you
too.
know, and it has always been.
Oh.
So I give thanks.
Yeah, African Heritage Foundation.
So I give thanks for that. I agree with
KE4.
what you were saying, Kimar, in that I have so many brothers and sisters, and even me myself couldn't care less about the millions and the billions and the economics of Rastas. For me, I want to be able to pray in peace. I want to be able to use my plant for the well-being of my family. Right? That is enough for me to be able to share with my neighbors and my friends and my family within that bartering system as you spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
Right? And no, I don't see the white boys or the young as leaders.
But you know,
Yeah, we're going
but to
on
be
a serious
fair,
point, right? On a serious point. What is happening now is that you have on the street influx of cannabis coming from North America.
Yeah.
Something that they call exotic.
yeah,
Right? That being grown under lights and things, if you understand the makeup of the plant, right? The plant is a sun plant,
okay,
right? It needs natural sunlight to produce THC. These lights don't do it. Artificial lights don't do it. So in order to produce THC under artificial lights, it has to come through the root. It has to be fed into the
But
plant.
isn't THC
through
bad?
some kind,
Isn't THC known to be bad?
No. THC is the psychoactive component of the thing that says make it get high.
I'll get mad.
Right? Huh?
I'll get mad.
Well, you could get mad, you could get glad, you could get what you want to get. Right? That is another thing that we should speak in terms of the psychosis, because cannabis is not for everyone. Just like milk is not for everyone. Right? This is my queen there. Right? She can't eat bread. She's what do you call it? Gluten intolerant. She
Okay.
can't eat any form of wheat. But we're not going to make bread illegal because of people that can't eat wheat.
But we will be vexed.
But
Right.
I,
Right.
question
So,
though, I don't know if you mentioned it already, but what are the benefits of using marijuana based upon what you mentioned just now in terms of prayer and with your whole sacrament
okay.
and what you use it?
Alright. Now, I brought a document here, right? I'm going to read this with you. And it is called A Search for God Within. Right? When we start down that road of sacrament, it move into the realm of what we call the esoteric. Before we started to go live, we had a little reasoning here, and we were speaking about energy. And I was
Give
saying,
me 1 second. Go ahead.
you can take a look at this way.
Go ahead. Just let us know if the sound is affected, because I think we just changed over the system. Go ahead, Ras Simba.
Right? So within this theory, you know, they're looking at the relationship between, as I said, between plants and people. Within an esoteric realm, which is we are saying energy, vibration, mantra, all these things are affected. When we can access what we call the God realm, from an esoteric perspective, sometimes we need a little help. And there are hundreds of plants that for centuries have helped man within their quest to understand themselves more. Right? So even within that paper, it talks about an experiment that was done, I think in the early 70s. You'll see one of the points there, on Good Friday. You know, and a number of people were given a particular plant, right, which had the same psychoactive ingredients with it, and then they were given another plant that didn't have any.
Wait, before you go any further, you said you just verged into something though that kind of stunned me. You said people were given a plant that has psychoactive ingredients.
You know, the man here.
You said people were given a plant which has psychoactive ingredients.
All right, it says.
And some were given a plant.
Alright, so it says the experiment took place on Good Friday 1962. Two groups of students received either psilocybin or Niacin, a non-hallucinogenic controlled substance, on a double-blind basis prior to the service in Boston's University March Chapel. Following the service, nearly the entire group receiving psilocybin reported having a profound religious experience compared to just a few in the control group who hadn't. Right? There are other writings and researches, right, that have placed the use of plants. It is also argued that the use of plants within their psychoactive nature founded the history of religion and spirituality.
So there are other plants out there other than marijuana, and obviously
Hundreds.
Right.
So my
but
question is,
are all of them illegal?
so my question is then, why not use the ones that aren't illegal?
Because we do use the ones that are illegal. Some are not native to us here, right? They have races like myself that we do use mushrooms and things. Remember, within the advent of the Rastafari movement, within a spiritual context, it started in the space of Jamaica, within this region. In that early thing, there was the indentured slaves, servants, and they impacted on the black community in Jamaica. The word ganja is an Indian word, it's a Hindu word.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of the meditation and thing that came with the use of the plant came from that. Even Bob Marley, the gong, right, is also Hindu in its origin. So we take that and bring it across, right? But because we are anti-colonial space, we're trying to create an anti-colonial space within where we are now, within a colonial space. We are not willing to say, well, oh, we're going to give up one, you know what I mean, to use another, because you know what's going to happen? When the government say, well, this one become illegal because of this or because of the use now, what are we going to do? Try another one?
That's true. Right.
I think to just touch a bit on Jeremy's point, most medicines come from plants, right?
Yeah.
So I don't particularly see the hassle now with accepting marijuana in its true sense as a medicine.
It's a money thing.
That too. But
The thing is, how do you let one class of people do billion-dollar business with this thing while denying access to it to another class of people? The minister's saying, oh, investors come now, they have to give 30% of the company shares, you know what I mean, to Barbadians. What class of Barbadians can afford shares in billion-dollar?
Probably
That's what we
discussed.
discussed that when we discussed that on the first show. We talked about medical marijuana, and we were saying that on average it was like almost $200,000 to $500,000
Yeah.
to just get into the business. And I mean, you were saying that first you can't even afford to go Africa. I don't even know furthermore for you to even put in money to go there.
Let's not forget that Simba has asked that anybody who's willing to sponsor him a trip to Africa.
Well, don't forget the wifey too.
But you know, in saying that, I'm sure that Jermaine Bedford could probably sponsor you to trip to Africa.
But not only that, so my question would be, and I don't know if you could help me here. What is the fear, or what do you think is the fear in giving the Rastafarian community the legalization it needs for sacramental purposes.
Before you go on, right?
What you want to kill a question with that?
No, I ain't killing it. But I just want to put something into perspective for you. This morning, right, I was the moderator on a panel discussion.
I saw you.
I saw that.
And the gentleman said,
In the gentleman.
when the marijuana grow and the marijuana get tall, that's what the see the hurricane come in and destroy all of Barbados.
That's you see the misconceptions about there?
I couldn't see it.
Right?
I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see anything in time because I was rather in shock.
Why you shocked no?
But at such a comment, right? But he was talking and talking. But I didn't correct him by telling me.
You should have.
But I didn't know what to say, honestly.
I haven't forgotten the question. It's a good question. But I just wanted to say, when we was championing the cause for the homeschooling, right?
Mm-hmm.
We went to something that they call the mock parliament up at UE. You know,
Yeah.
the parliament. And then this one elder man got up, you know, and said that he was opposed to homeschooling because they don't know what the children, they're teaching the children, they could be teaching them terrorism. Oh my
You serious?
The man was serious, you know what I mean? And I was like, okay, alright, just like you know, they got
More
something
shots,
that,
they
you
can't
know,
even respond.
you can't even respond, you know. But you know, in answer to your question, Bob Marley, who is probably like the face of Rastafari internationally, said that
Yes. More so than Selassie.
well, when I say the face of Rastafari, when you go wherever you go in the world,
You know,
Bob Marley recognized.
Bob Marley recognized.
That's the way it's
you know
like
what I mean?
it's a Garfield.
You go in China, you know, it's people Bob Marley, you know what I mean? You know, even if they don't know about Haile Selassie, you know, Haile Selassie, we know his position in Rastafari, but in terms of recognition,
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley's global.
I went to school in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't forget the question.
Yeah. No problem.
And I remember going to a party, you know, these white people, you know, I had a friend that just loved white people, so we went to this party with all these white people, and all this, like, alternative music and thing was playing, and you know, I was getting a headache, you know.
Like me.
And I asked him, you know, the host of the party, if they got no kind of different music. But that party was different, you know, like a hosting. He said, look, show the music, man, anything you want to see that you want to play, you can play. So I said, what? I can remember flipping through CDs. And the last CD I found was Bob Marley Legend. And I put it in that, and I played for the rest of the night. People didn't even concerned. And I play it over and over. Just said that to say, if nobody else, that
Bob
people
Marley.
know, they know Bob Marley. Bob Marley said that the use of cannabis opens your mind, and society says it is going to make you rebel. But the question is, rebel against what?
I agree.
Or against who?
Or against who?
Bob Marley small inside the Buckingham Palace.
Right? So, the one of the fears of letting go cannabis that it can actually impact on poverty alleviation. It can actually impact on crime reduction, which the society, which a classist society needs to survive. You can't have rich people if you don't have poor people. You can't have doctors if you don't have sick people. You can't have police if they have people committing crime.
I agree.
So if you try to effectively get rid of these things, you're affecting your workforce that you have built up on these things.
We know I've often said that crime is about economic value, and it's not economic value for the criminals. It's for the system that
For the system
that actually
you know,
benefits from it.
You know, and if you look at these things, look at the prison pipeline and what is being touted, you know what I mean?
Forced labor.
Right? So, and then we come along, you know what I mean, as a little island, and we have leaders that, who I would say very graciously are limited, you know, in their viewpoint, you know, and their international perspective and their idea of being sovereign, you know, and what it takes to be a sovereign person, what it takes to build a sovereign community and a sovereign island.
Already being sovereign is way until when America and England do it.
You know what I mean? We are
Followers.
We like to react, you know what I mean? We would see a corner that is very dangerous, you know what I mean? For people say, well, this corner somebody can die here. But you know when they can put a mirror or something, when somebody died.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Right?
I definitely agree there. I think
We are basic followers.
More like a reactive than
We
a
are
proactive.
reactive, we are not proactive.
I think we are a copycat society,
Very
even
much
as
so.
it relates to culture, music, dressing, food.
Yeah, I remember when they had the song come out, Bannerman in the Take Pass in the Square French shoes, and then the guy that used to do the wacky dip came to Barbados like 3 days later. Everybody was in Take Pass the Square French shoes.
Alright, then.
But you know, it's even more classic. You remember years ago, people in Barbados were very ashamed to wear their African outfits. And then from the moment they start watching African movies,
Yeah, don't talk about when the Black Panther the movie come out.
Yeah,
Black Panther forever.
That was that shit.
I think you know, my new Black Panther get out.
For the week or the month it last, everybody was wearing African clothes and thing. Go downtown.
They even got a store in town.
we got many stores in town now selling African clothes.
But if you go downtown now and see the African person, that flag gone on, you know, it was just a flag.
Yeah, it was.
So, this basically revolves around the fact that we want to preserve our colonial history in Barbados,
Yeah.
That is the thing.
but still reaching that African spirituality when it benefits the colonial system.
Exactly.
So, what can the African Heritage Foundation do to try to counter? Well, I mean, it's kind of difficult to counteract that colonial thinking when it's so far ingrained and generation after generation. So, what can you do? Well, I know you're doing some work as it relates to education and what's not. So, how can you get a further reach as to educating Barbados about their true selves and if they would actually relate to picking up their true African essence?
Well, as you say, yes, we're trying, you know, different programs in schools and things like that. But as it relates,
You can list some of the schools that you go to.
right? Yeah, you know.
Related to the schools though, how are you accepted in the schools?
That is also very interesting too.
For Black History Month, it is we're after because we're always invited.
Only
Okay.
Black.
Is that your thing?
Only for Black History Month. Listen to what I'm going to tell you now, right? And we need to show this a different show altogether because it's had nothing to do with cannabis. The African Heritage Foundation did a calendar this year, which was supposed to be an educational tool. It's an educational tool. So
Yeah.
it has a number of different dates highlighted, different people, different events, you know. And we gave 3 schools as a pilot project these calendars to place in every classroom. They had enough to place one in every classroom. The thinking was that the teachers could informally, you know, when they see today is this body birthday, the 17th of August, but you know, there'll be a holiday on it. The 2nd of November, like Coronation Day, you know, this and that. Would they could easily say, well, today is this day, and you know, and we have been trying to get feedback from the schools. And what we have ascertained is that the biggest problem we have in reaching the children is the teachers.
Teachers are accepting.
I have been to a primary school where when we laid out the program of what we were going to do, and it included drumming, and when you say drumming, that would bring evil spirits in the children. We can't allow drumming. How can we allow drumming?
So the first
Okay, but you see the African drum? You know what I
the
mean?
first thing you want to get through is a lot of the fraught misconceptions that black people have about themselves.
Exactly.
I think where you got start
thinking.
where you got start is that you got to teach teachers.
Right?
I mean,
Exactly. But we don't have enough media, you know. And let's remember I said that I was glad to see a show like this out there, and we need more of this. And we in the African Heritage Foundation had planned to do something like this, probably will still, but you know, on that, you know.
But more members to
You
come.
know, but we need African history and culture. The Prime Minister has now said that she is going to do, they're going to have an African Awareness Festival after Crop Over. Interesting. It's a whole that had nothing to do with cannabis again too, you know, because that, like I just plug this. The season of emancipation, Crop Over is supposed to be part and parcel of that festival.
Already.
So if that is part of your emancipation festival, what need is there for one after?
Because
I agree with you, you know, because
Crop Over has
become
just a walk up and skimpy outfit.
right, which you know what I mean,
Propose commercial.
which is detrimental to our African culture and heritage.
Yeah.
Remember, if
in slavery, one of the first things they did was to break down the African family.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the majority of soca songs about horning, about jerking people, throwing take this body woman, this and that. It is an actual celebration of the breakdown of the family unit.
But before you get
That's something different.
But no, that's a powerful
That's a whole different
step.
show.
Listen,
hold on.
I just want to say this because if a lot of people don't understand what Ras Simba just said, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot we lost.
We are.
Because he didn't say it's a breakdown of the person. He didn't say it's a breakdown of just a culture, which means all that ties in. But he said it's a breakdown of the family.
Yes.
And that's so powerful that
That is
a lot of people don't see. Because we just enjoy the moment. I repeat, I had a song, enjoy it. If you remember, enjoy the mass, you never know it may be last. So you focus on that enjoyment because you don't know it will be last. It's like we have not realized how it has crippled society to a large extent.
You know.
Wait, Ras Simba,
what
before
they
you
call,
go further, would the African Heritage Foundation consider? I mean, considering now that we are speaking seriously about the legalization of cannabis in Barbados, would you consider would your organization and the Rastafari movement consider doing the month of cannabis in Barbados and even planning some activities around it so as to bring even further awareness to the
I
Barbadian
think that
public?
would be a good idea to have a month focus on cannabis. The other day,
But a month where the Rastafari heritage is leading and not necessarily
community and Pan-African organizations, yes.
Yeah, because my thing is, my fear is always that when you got these brilliant ideas, the stupid man comes in and they start to put it in a way that it looks so formal that it runs away from substance.
Exactly.
So I think it's something that the Heritage Foundation or the Rastafari
You should
Foundation
lead it.
by the people, for the
You
people.
know, about 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I was invited to Mona. There's a Rastafari Study Center in Mona,
Okay.
right? And I was invited there.
Mona is in Jamaica.
In Jamaica.
So just
right?
let you know.
Yes, University of West Indies, Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
And I was invited there to help them produce a radio program on their radio station called Ganja Talk.
Wait, we should have that in Barbados.
Exactly. I had them produce like the first 7 shows in the first series.
Okay.
But while I was there, I went to a festival called Stepping High. And you can find all this reports and all this on the website.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And Stepping High was a cannabis festival held in Negril.
Yeah.
Right? At that time, Jamaica had only decriminalized ganja like about the previous year or something like that.
Okay.
But my surprise, that was like the 16th or the 17th anniversary of that particular festival. So I asked myself, wait, all the time ganja illegal, y'all got this big festival where ganja free?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Of course.
And the policeman said, well, yes, but we understand, we've always understood what cannabis meant to the community. I know the policeman told me to at the festival.
What?
He said, Ras, this new law not only freeing you up, it frees me up as a policeman because I can now go into my community. I don't have to run down the youth for a little fight bag, and, you know what I mean? And they respect me more because they can now go after gun people and think that they themselves
Real criminals
are the criminals in the community. You know
I
what I
agree.
mean? So the police in there has been a rejuvenation of relations between police and people in communities just from freeing them up to have to support the
You
law.
would support the notion that if we had an ease in marijuana laws in Barbados, that the crime situation will actually go down and they will have a reduction in, because from my view of the world, a lot of the murders that we were having were kind of drug related as it relates to marijuana too. No person's trying to do something, you'll get a person when we come in and stealing and doing all
I know
different things. So
the murders and things, not the cannabis itself, but the money that the black market has put there.
Mm-hmm.
If you make anything valuable, if you, again, I like to use oranges. If you make oranges illegal, and everybody cut down the oranges trees, and I think I can't get them, I find a way to smuggle in oranges for somebody that got orange trees somewhere else.
I can do it.
You know how much my oranges they cost though?
Exactly.
Right.
Real money. You know what I mean? I know what happen. people gonna want to kill me to come for my oranges to take my yard. So I mean, saying, so that is what is Billy thinks with it. So don't focus on the cannabis. It is the law, and that document that the CARICOM Commission has put out has said so. Right? Research has shown, you know what I mean, in places that have legalized, you know what I mean, that violent crime has dropped. If you understand the role of cannabis as it is in the society now, right? People have a real misconception. You will be on a block now and a fella come in there and he angry about something, he ready to kill him. You know what I mean?
You smoke something, he calm down.
He go on by the push a man now, he push a man say, what happened to you, buddy? What happened? Smoke this and relax, man. So he smoke this thing, you know what I mean? And he talking about all the public number, he smoke and thing. You see, by the time he done smoking, he get up and say, wait down, man. I better going home and relax myself, man.
You know what?
You know what I mean?
I think
So-
we should have told the Attorney General this in abundance so that we could probably get a reduction in all these murders, having the highest murder rate for the year.
You know, you remember
No?
in the election there was a man fella called Charles and Taylor that
Yeah.
was running for a thing, and he came out with this thing and he's saying that if the cannabis don't get legal blood and run the street, and you know it was a whole thing. But he get that from me because he came to the foundation, you know, and I was sitting on the back set smoking my step and telling you know something in time, right? But everybody know that I smoke
That clear.
That clear.
I don't think that's an open secret.
That one a secret. That now.
Quite open.
My mother know, my daughter know, everybody else can know.
No Barbados,
You know
no.
what I mean? The Attorney General know, quite tell you so, yeah, it is. You know what I mean? And the minister in that way called me and I was playing dominoes, right? And I tell him, you know, and he talking about Ras Simba, eventually you all will get what you want. And I telling him, Mr. Minister, eventually don't work for me because you know, you see, I talking to you, I send down playing dominoes and I smoking a strip and then the police come around and you know this conversation done. Right? And it's a real thing, you know, it sounds funny, but that is my real position, right? And if I say, but you started minister for you, I say, this is my life. I have nothing, you know what I mean? If I give up this, I might as well be dead. You know, if you're not willing to stand for someone, and it's a religious principle,
You'll fall for anything.
huh? If these Christians, people that revere this man Jesus, if he was willing to go to the cross, according to them, you know what I mean? For them, I must do the same, brother. I have to do the same for my people. I could bear the cross. It is not too much for me.
Well, I really say something here on this program tonight. Maybe
You
look
always
at
willing to say something on this program.
I will say here, we asked for who the leader is in terms of cannabis and the legalization and the forerunners. We look at the people who cross the seas, but I think we got our own local leader here, Ras Simba, who is willing to stand up for what he believes in and is fighting for those rights all over Barbados and is not afraid of any repercussions that may come as a result of him fighting for his rights.
What are they going to do to me? Lock me up again?
For the child of fines, man.
The only thing that I have so many Rastafari brothers and sisters that say that the only thing that the government that they can say in charge, that they have a charge against them with, the only time they have come afoul of the law is for cannabis.
And I
Take
don't
away
believe she
that,
got locked up for
you know
cannabis.
what I mean? And they have done nothing. Meat is the same thing. The only charge I ever get in my life, the only time I visit the magistrate, I think, was for cannabis. I mean, the first time was for something different, but I was still a defense of myself, for myself in a little scuffle with some skinheads. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But that's a whole different story. But I would say that it is just cannabis.
Okay.
So you keep me a criminal. The university here has set up a company, Barbados Medical Cannabis, right? And they have asked me to be a part of that program. I would love to be, but I'm a criminal.
So you can't.
So I may have to show up to work one day, but I can't because the police got me for a fight bite. How would that look?
Not good at all.
And I tell myself right now, and all the police and thing watching, you say anytime I got a little fight, people think I'm not running from the police no more.
But you, well,
Because I know that the day they lock me up, it can make front page.
You can back from the fear of the law.
You know what I mean? And I will have my say, what can they do to me? Exactly what can they do to me?
sell your dogs.
Huh?
No, I'm not fight back. You could try to find your
Right? They can find me thing, you understand what I'm saying? And if they want to play a part and thing and do what they, let them do what they have to do. I will say what I have to say, and I can only hope that the people respond. Ever watch the movie Malcolm X?
Yeah.
Remember the scene I love the most is when the police hold Brother Johnson and they had in the police station. And when Malcolm come here and two men and say he wants to see Brother Johnson, the man he must be joking, but we don't have no Brother Johnson. The policeman was looking away and say, "Sorry, you should come and look at this boy." When you look outside, you see a line of black men militant, huh? Yes, Mr. Johnson is here, you can see him. Huh? That is what we need, brother. You see if every cannabis user, whether it is a smoker, whether it's use oil, whether it is eat it, whether it's drink it in tea, was to get up and say present on cannabis morning, the government would shake. You see Parliament, the next Parliament when they meeting to discuss this bill, if every cannabis user was to come out in Hero Square there and just stand up.
You might know the whole of Barbados down there.
Huh?
Including some of the
But
people.
I ain't telling nobody to come out, but I'm because they had to say that I tell people to come out and they causing nothing by saying clearly, right, that if they were to do so, right, because they chose to do so and not because I tell them to do so, right, that the government will go take them more serious.
I understand.
We have lawyers, doctors, teachers, people in all walks of this community and all lives doing all sorts of jobs that use cannabis daily.
I agree.
And
Right?
they ain't gonna be rastas.
I would
Far out say rasta.
and dispel the myth, you know what I mean? A lot of these things, if you smoke, you're lazy, you can't work, if you
I completely disagree with that.
you know what they say? Oh, it affects your memory.
What does it affect memory more than cigarettes?
Now listen to me. Most reggae singers, right, they smoke not herb.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I can remember so much lyrics and things. You gotta have good memory to be a musician. You know, those people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can't tell me that all these
They
things
got
you remember.
7 or 8 albums.
And you got
going,
7
whatever.
or 8 albums and you got to remember songs to sing when people sing and lyrics and you know, so I mean, your memory got to be up there though.
I agree.
But Marley memory have to be up there though,
I agree.
right?
That's
So,
another point.
You got 2 minutes before we wrap up.
I support expunging records for all offenders for cannabis. I mean, the large amounts might be a little bit too much to start to call for, but for persons who inhale 5 buys, 10 pieces, anything under
A pound.
well, I was gonna say a pound, but
I would say anything under like a 2 ounce, an ounce and a half.
yeah.
You see the people that bringing in 500 pounds this and that and thing, the players that want to make money in the industry after it's free, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How you deal with them, you deal with them,
Right.
Yeah.
right? All I'm talking about is for, you know what I mean?
Recreational
Listen,
use.
I
Because
support
the-
expunging
the-
records for
yeah.
Yeah, man, using it for the everyday use.
Right, just
rather than-
you know what I mean? By saying man that want to, you know,
Make a
bring
million
the
or two.
thousands of pounds and thing, you don't need to do that no more because everybody could access it themselves.
Men that want to play yachts,
Right.
flying
Yeah.
in the Caribbean.
Right, and talking about it, don't know that it was there. I think.
Yeah,
Remember that's a serious thing, you know, 'cause remember, if this thing saying, if the bill saying that people with indictments can't be involved in the
You
industry,
should have seen that to
Right.
them.
but you better get off so that they can still be in the industry.
But
But won't get off.
At least one get off.
But the black man still in prison?
Right? Yeah.
Right, he ain't had the quantity amount that he was bringing in to even pay the bill that was the
Yeah.
same.
So you can't put the same yacht that to get hold of
Right.
it.
Right, I don't know. That's what the people will call a PLA case.
But I just want to bring the show to close. We've been going like almost 2 hours now.
Yeah.
So, right?
Yeah, conversation good. We normally do an hour and a half, but you know, we got good people for the show.
Please go on.
Please go on and go on and go on. But we must have you back again, Ras Simba.
Thank you for having me.
You have a strong support on tonight from the Rastafarian community, so we want to start Shama Roach for keeping us
Yeah,
going.
Shamor.
Shamor Roach
He's
for
quiet.
keeping us Ras small as well. From the community, all those came on.
Osula Holder.
Lee Bajan, pardon?
Osula Holder.
Masula Holder and all those guys came on.
Osula's over, man.
Yeah, sorry, sorry, forgive me with the names out. So, but I just want to say thanks to everybody. Ras Simba, I don't know if you want any final minute to say anything. Highlight anything that coming up.
As I said before, it would be good
if there is an overwhelming show of support for the use of cannabis within a traditional indigenous forms.
Yeah.
I think that the newspaper should be bombarded with articles. The
Proper
politicians should
articles
be
too.
bombarded with proper articles, with letters. You know, we need a stronger show. People need to stand up for what is right. You know, I know we are said to be a more conservative sort of society.
Yeah.
I think that this is a good opportunity to put it to the test, right? And I think that if more people speak up and speak out, even within social media,
Yeah.
right, that the powers that be have to take another look at this thing. I think the bill goes back to Parliament October the 8th
Okay.
or around that time.
Yeah.
You know, that is not a long time, but I think that the conversation could step up. And if people have the means to challenge them, take the government to court. You know, if they have a number of cases coming, you know what I mean, don't let it only be me. Don't let it only be, you know. If you have the means and if people are willing to support you, do what you have to do, but be heard, make your mark felt. You know, show that you're not satisfied by the position.
Okay.
We understand that the country has to do what it has to do within the pharmaceutical cannabis
Yeah.
realm. You know what I mean? We don't want to take issue with that. But put the horse before the cart,
Definitely.
right? And let it pull smoothly. Right?
And be inclusive.
Yeah. So let us all feed the horse so the horse can get up and move forward.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Ras Simba. I was truly elated by what you had to say on the show notifications here as well. We just want to thank everyone for tuning in. Again, host Damani Small, and you can just raise your hand, Damani, nobody knows. You know, so you know who you are. Kimar Safri, Kimar Stewart, Jermaine Beckford. And we want to say thanks to Ras Simba's queen for coming up. She's in the back, but we're just going to say thanks to her as well. For all the Rastafarian community members that would have tuned in, and those from the African Heritage Foundation as well. The show comes to you every Wednesday and Saturday at 6 p.m. We're here and we try to bring you as much information. We try to bring the people that are on the ground to really get you informed, and that's what the show to call the name DeBrief, because we debrief topics, try to bring everything to an understandable level. We want you also to like the page so you can follow other conversations and other shows. Ras Simba, we would love to have you back again to discuss other topics affecting the Rastafarian community. Some of the things that the African Heritage Foundation is championing as well. We would love to hear about those things as well. So please like us, follow us, share when we are on. You must let the page to know when we have a next show. All those in the Rastafarian community, please tell them to follow and like the page as well. We have some really strong people coming on. We have some other things to bring from the ground up. So please stay in touch with us. And we want to thank everyone for watching tonight. You have a good weekend. And message weekend, whatever you do, be safe and sound. Have a good night.